Hey there, Future is Wild fans. My name is Jack, and I run a YouTube channel called Subjectively. We make videos about art, media, and storytelling. Recently, I had the great honor of speaking with Joanna Adams, the creator of The Future is Wild. We decided to team up, and the video you're about to watch is the first of hopefully many wherein I explore The Future is Wild from the perspective of a professional illustrator. If you enjoy this video, be sure to check out my channel, Subjectively. We make a ton of content about fictional creatures and how I create them, and we have plans to make more videos like this one in the future. Thank you to Joanna and the rest of the Future is Wild team for this opportunity to collaborate, and now, without further ado, enjoy the video. When I was a kid, my mom didn't want me and my sisters to have access to cable TV. She thought that channels like Nickelodeon and MTV would rot our brains. As much as I resented this at the time, in retrospect, I'm actually really grateful that my mom cared enough to moderate the kinds of content that I was consuming. The truth is, not all TV is made with the intention of contributing something meaningful to society. A lot of shows you'd find on TV in the early 2000s were mass-produced slop, low effort at best, and downright dangerously misinformative at worst. And that was back when you had to turn on a TV and look for a channel to get your entertainment. Now kids carry their TVs around with them and can watch YouTube video after YouTube video of, kid-friendly content. Honestly, as much as they may not like it, if I had kids, I'd be sure to restrict the kind of content that they were consuming too. Instead of staring mindlessly at Minecraft YouTubers for hours on end, I'd love to sit them down in front of the same kinds of things that I watched when I was younger. It may come as a surprise to a lot of parents, but little kids don't need constant overstimulation to stay engaged. Sometimes all it takes is some CGI dinosaurs and a soothing British narrator. TV documentary series were gaining popularity in the early 2000s, and channels like the BBC, History, and Discovery were at the forefront of this genre. Some of these series were incredibly impactful and cherished even to this day, such as the legendary Walking with Dinosaurs. Name one paleo nerd who grew up between the years 1990 and 2010 who hasn't watched this series. And while it's true that the information presented in these films isn't always accurate, the intention of the creators was to make something entertaining yet informative. They wanted to turn the public's fascination with a topic like dinosaurs into an opportunity to teach people about real science. Even if some of the facts were later deemed to be outdated information, docuseries like these got young people excited about learning, and that's a valuable thing. On the other hand, you had shows like Ancient Aliens that basically threw any regard for actual science out the window and replaced it with incredibly misinformative conspiracy theories.
It's possible that they were actually extraterrestrial beings who came here to influence humankind.
But there's a weird middle ground between educational, beneficial content and meaningless, anti-educational filler. Somewhere between Ancient Aliens and Walking with Dinosaurs, there's a no man's land of well-researched yet entirely fictional content that was educational enough for it to be sold in most museum gift shops, but imaginative enough for them to be considered science fiction more than documentaries. I'm talking about the subgenre of docu-fiction, taking fictional concepts, stories, and characters and formatting them as if they were the subjects of a real-world documentary. Some notable examples include Alien Planet, Dragons, a fantasy made real, and, on the less informative end of the spectrum, Finding Bigfoot, which is really more of a reality show than it is a docu-fiction, but either way, they wanted you to believe that this shit was real. Finding Bigfoot got 9 seasons, by the way.
I do think there's a squatch in these woods.
My favorite series from this genre, though, has to be the iconic, the incredible, the unforgettable The Future is Wild. Now, I want to preface my analysis of this show real quick, but before we get into it, I am not a scientist, I am not a filmmaker, I am an illustrator and a character designer. I make up creatures for a living. When I watched this series as a kid, and I watched it a lot, I was enamored by the idea that a group of adults got together and basically did what me and my sisters did on the average weekday afternoon. Make up a bunch of fake animals and talk about how they kill each other. I'm going to attempt to critique The Future is Wild in as much of an academic sense as I possibly can, but be warned, A lot of this is coming from the perspective of a man who has made content like this before and has a non-zero amount of nostalgia-based bias. The Future is Wild is a 13-episode-long docu-series released in 2002 on the Discovery Channel and Animal Planet in the United States and the BBC in the United Kingdom. The series discusses speculative evolution, a subgenre of science fiction wherein writers hypothesize possible futures for our current planet, imagining a world 5, 50, or 100 million years in the future where evolution has written a new chapter in the story of life. Speculative evolution is actually a really cool marriage of art and science. As the name suggests, it applies what we know about genealogy, ecology, and biology to speculate what life on our planet may look like given enough time and generations of adaptation. We know that the family of dinosaurs that included the T-Rex evolved quite a bit since the mass extinction event about 65 million years ago, and now, instead of giant carnivores that weigh more than a school bus, we have cute little birds that decorate pillowcases and the shoulders of pirates. If such a dramatic change could occur to a family of animals over 65 million years, who knows what the animals we're familiar with today will look like in another couple millennia? Often this subject matter is explored through written word and illustrations. In modern times, we have YouTube channels like Curious Archive that explore all realms of fantasy and fiction from a scientific perspective. They even break down the scientific plausibility of creatures like dragons, which itself was the topic of another docu-fiction from around the same time as The Future is Wild. I guess the concept of dragons is so intriguing it permeates into the realm of science from the world of fantasy. Historically, the most well-known artist in the field of speculative evolution is Dougal Dixon, the author of After Man and its sequels, The New Dinosaurs and Man After Man.
My name. こんにちは、ドゥーガル・ディクソンです。これから皆さんにご覧に入れるのは私が考えた今から5000万年後の未来の動物たちです。
今から5000万年後、日が遠くなるような未来の地球を支配するディクソンさんが考えた不思議な動物たち。一体どんな暮らしをしているのでしょう。そしてなぜこんな動物たちが登場するのでしょうか。ディクソンさんと一緒に想像力のタイムトラベルに出かけましょう。
Even if you're not familiar with his name, I bet you've seen this image before. Yep, this is one of Dixon's illustrations, depicting two evolutionary descendants of Homo sapiens. Dougal Dixon was actually involved in the production of The Future is Wild. In 1996, producer Joanna Adams asked Dixon, alongside other artists and scientists, to be part of her idea for a documentary series about a hypothetical and scientifically plausible futuristic Earth. According to a blog post by H. Thomas and confirmed by Adams herself in a reply to the same post, the process of creating The Future is Wild began with figuring out the geology of a future Earth.
The Earth's crust is broken into huge plates like pieces of a jigsaw that jostle and slide over the face of the globe at a few centimeters a year. In 100 million years' time, the continents will be in completely different positions.
Again, I'm not a scientist, so if you'd like a more well-informed breakdown of predicting the movement of tectonic plates, I recommend watching The Future is Wild. It's all on YouTube right now, and it is, after all, a genuinely educational program. In a nutshell, though, the scientists in this documentary agree that over the next 200 million years, the 7 continents would shift back together to form another supercontinent. This has happened before in Earth's history, and has had a significant impact on the way that plants and animals evolve. After figuring out what the planet would look like 5, 100, and 200 million years into the future, the team of The Future is Wild got to work on the fun part, designing the animals that would inhabit this new world. Dougal Dixon, alongside the late Robert McNeill Alexander, designed such iconic creatures as the Caterpillar, the Swampus, and of course, the Flish, which graced the front cover of the DVD box set that I had as a kid.
Flish look at first sight a little like birds. They're brightly coloured, they flap their wings in rather similar ways, but they've evolved completely separately from a very different ancestor. Flish, as their name suggests, have evolved from fish.
These animals may look as if they were just silly ideas drawn without consideration for any laws of nature, but Dixon wasn't just making shit up. I mean, he was, but from an educated point of view. When I design creatures, I tend to wax fantastical. The more unbelievable, the better, for me at least. And that works really well if you're creating characters for a world of fantasy, horror, or any other genre where the rules of our world don't apply. But like I always say with character design, intent is everything. Dixon's intent was not only to create something exciting that would hold people's attention while it was on screen, but to use his art to demonstrate real-world scientific concepts like evolution. Take the Kara Killers from episode 3.
Kara killers are fast.
In this episode, we get a glimpse into the ice age of 5 million years after the modern day. This dramatic shift in global climate has turned the Amazon rainforest into a vast grassland. It's a shame humans don't exist anymore because McDonald's would have really loved to graze their beef cattle here. Over the course of 5 million years, life has had plenty of time to adapt to the changing ecosystem. The Caracara, a member of the falcon family that currently inhabits almost all of South America, has evolved into an entirely terrestrial predator 10 times its current size. Now, as much as it's fun to imagine birds evolving back into dinosaurs, there's some real science behind the decision to have these aerial falcons evolve into walking guillotines. As explained in the episode, caracaras are already prone to hunting or scavenging for food on the ground. This behavior is likely to give them an advantage as trees start to disappear from the Amazon, as other birds that rely on prey caught in the canopy will be left without a food source. The family may become more widespread across the continent, eventually foregoing the use of flight altogether and instead capitalizing on their predilection for terrestrial locomotion. In other words, they like to walk instead of fly.
Kara killers are fast.
Given enough time, and considering the hypothetical geological circumstances, the caracaras may, through the process of natural selection, become hefty terror birds that run down their prey and hunt in coordinated packs. Thus, the Kara Killer was created, not only because a giant flightless bird makes for great TV, but because it's a fascinating hypothetical example of how much an animal can change over millions of years. If I could pick only one thing to critique about these speculative animal designs, it would have to be the names. Kara Killer? I mean, come on, are we talking science here or are we coming up with edgy Fakemon? We've also got Death Gleamers, Shagrats, Grykin, and my personal favorite from the entire series, the Rattleback. These things are like the anime protagonists of the Future is Wild series. The writers like them so much they get featured in 2 separate episodes of the show. Yeah, this thing gets regional variants, Grassland Rattleback and Desert Rattleback. Also, they're fireproof, giant killer bat proof, and so badass that they'll just steal eggs from a Karakiller's nest and shrug off their attacks like it was a mosquito bite. Yeah, up there on the list of top 10 characters who can beat Omni-Man in a fight. Looking at all these beasties gets me excited, you know, it kind of makes me want to design my own Spec Evo creature. If I used the same process of taking a really educated guess about the future of our world and apply it to a design of my own, what kind of creature would I create? Let's take a quick pause from my little retrospective and draw something. Aha! I tricked you. This is an art video. We're gonna draw stuff. Let's start with the geology, like the creators of The Future is Wild did. Let's imagine the same ice age 5 million years into the future, where the ice caps have expanded and the global climate has shifted dramatically. We know that this change has caused the Amazon rainforest to dry up, but what about North America? In episode 4 of The Future is Wild, we learned that the encroaching ice caps have extended as far south as Chicago, turning most of the Midwest into a barren, freezing desert. As the polar caps grow in size, the global sea levels recede, exposing more of the coast of what was once the United States. This is where I would be if I managed to survive another million years and decided to never leave Rhode Island. Although, I guess at this point it would just be called Rhode Land. But what about the animals around me? What would have changed about, let's say, the turkeys that roam around in my backyard? Wild turkeys, Meleagris gallipovo, are highly adaptable birds that can be found in forests, coastal plains, swamps, and plateaus. They can eat a wide range of food, from nuts and seeds to berries and roots, even insects and small vertebrates. Their population can grow very quickly over a small area because of this. They have very few natural predators once they reach adult size, and the adult males are too large to be hunted by anything that would eat a hen or a poult, with the possible exception of alligators and, of course, humans. But in this world, humans have suddenly vanished, and the absence of one of their few means of population control means that turkeys can spread even more prolifically. Turkeys have lived through ice ages before. In fact, a prehistoric species of turkeys that went extinct as recently as 10,000 years ago was largely similar to the turkeys that we know today. Considering this, could we assume that our wild turkeys of what was once the northeastern coast would also remain the same? In the world of the future, large felines, canines, and bears have gone extinct. The largest predator in North America are members of the mustelid family, weasels, badgers, and wolverines. These animals hunt large game using ambush tactics and massive canine teeth that can penetrate thick fur and fat. It doesn't matter how big and bulky you are, if you get caught by a snowstalker or one of its southern cousins, you are Thanksgiving dinner. My bird brain tells me that if turkeys want to survive 5 million years into the future, they need to be smaller, not larger. A lot of people forget this, but turkeys can fly. They roost in trees at night to avoid ground-dwelling predators, and they can take off and travel significant distances in the air. I think that a turkey of the future would be better adapted for flying and much more reactive. They still forage on the ground, adapting to eat whatever flora manages to survive into this next ice age. Perhaps they develop a stronger taste for meat, able to chase down small prey with their stronger legs and quicker reflexes. Of course, the world is a much colder place than it is today, so they can't forgo all their bulk. A thicker, downier coat of feathers covers their body that even extends down to their legs. Their heads are no longer featherless, though males still boast colorful skin around their eyes and on their chest. An inflatable sack creates a stunning visual and audible display that echoes through the vast plains during mating season. They retain their strong sexual dimorphism, with males continuing to display bright colors as an indication of good health and fertility. But because there are fewer trees for them to hide amongst, they have evolved a winter plumage to conceal themselves in the vast fields of snow. Hence the fun, sci-fi sounding name, the powder fowl. Now, all the creatures featured in The Future's Wild have an extra wow factor, something that can be explained scientifically, but that is still exciting to see on screen. This isn't just for the sake of shock value, but to emphasize just how much is possible when it comes to evolution. For our powder fowls, this wow factor will be their defense mechanism. Turkeys today are known for the tom's striking tail feathers, used mostly to attract females and intimidate rival males. In the future, this adaptation goes a step further. The future birds can react quickly to a potential threat. If a predator sneaks up behind them and the powder fowl is alerted, they will immediately spring up into the air, flashing the underside of their tail feathers to reveal the menacing visage of several glaring eyes. Unlike with modern turkeys, both males and females possess these colorful tail feathers and use them as a defense rather than a display. This will send a predator into a state of momentary shock, allowing the swift powder fowl just enough time to take off and fly to safety. So that's my own little Spec Evo creation. Again, I'm much more of an artist than a scientist, so you paleobiologist nerds will have to rank me out of 10 on how plausible this design is. Give me a 0 if you think that turkeys would have just gone extinct altogether. But actually don't, because that's too sad of a concept for me to process right now. That was the character designer in me talking. Now, let me give another critique of this show from the perspective of, let's say, a casual science enthusiast. There was something that confused me as a child, something that I didn't really understand until I got older and was more thoroughly educated on the topic through means other than badass CGI armored rodents.
These sea slugs have given up crawling, but they've taken up flying through the water.
The quail became smaller, its body lower to the ground, and it lost the power of flight. Flutterbirds, each kind finding its own way to make a living. One way to survive in a cold climate is to get bigger.
The visuals of this show, alongside the presenter's explanations of the creatures showcased therein, seems to imply that evolution is a conscious effort made by the animals to adapt to a rapidly changing world. They use phrasing like needed to and were able to, which are not entirely inaccurate ways to describe evolution in a more conceptual sense, but it did make it seem to me, as a young person learning about this topic for the first time, that animals have and continue to consciously recognize environmental stresses and decide for themselves that they need to change their genes in order to survive as a species. This might be why some people believe evolution is just a big lie perpetuated by the shadow government and lizard people running our country. I mean, who would benefit the most from tricking the general public into thinking that at one point in our planet's history, the world was ruled by giant reptiles? But seriously, if your understanding of evolution is that it's something that happens over just a few generations as the result of a species coming to its own conclusion that it needs to change, it doesn't really make any more sense than just saying that Noah forgot to bring the dinosaurs on the ark, or whatever it is that creationists are saying these days. Fortunately, that's not how evolution works, and it's not how the creators of the show thinks it works either. Evolution describes the process of natural selection, allowing certain individuals of a species to have a better shot of surviving long enough to pass on their genes due to random and sometimes very subtle mutations in their DNA. Let's use the Kara killers as another example. Aha! I tricked you. This is an educational video. We're gonna learn some stuff. Let's say the future of our world promises an Amazonian grassland. Every generation of Kara born will have some offspring that have a handful of genes that would better suit them to life as a terrestrial predator. Just like with humans, not every animal born to the same parents is genetically identical. Maybe they have slightly stronger legs than their siblings, or perhaps their wings are weaker than the rest of the brood. As the environment changes around them, these discrepancies in their genetic code actually give them a better shot at surviving long enough to pass these genes along to a new generation that will then have the possibility of having even more beneficial mutations. Essentially, as the environment changes, the individuals that have the genes that make them better flyers, solitary hunters, and have narrower beaks will be outcompeted by their mutant brethren, and the freaks shall inherit the earth. Yep, just like Magneto prophesized.
Kara killers are fast.
I think this more elaborate explanation of evolution, which, for the record, is still incredibly simplified, was omitted from The Future is Wild in order to allow the actual animals to have more screen time. I mean, let's be honest, what do the majority of Discovery Channel viewers want to watch? This nerd explaining Darwin's theory of evolution for 10 minutes, or this epic shot of the snow stalker leaping at the camera that they reused about 6 times in one episode? I find it really funny that the narration that plays at the beginning of every episode ends with this shot of the snow stalker and the line,
"Like nothing the earth has ever seen."
There are literal tree-dwelling squids in this show, and they picked the one animal that looks very much like something the world has ever seen. The use of CGI in the series is especially nostalgic for me. CGI has improved so much since the time when The Future was Wild was first released, but the budget for the series must have been relatively high, because a lot of this holds up pretty well. Well, most of it does. Some of it. The directors take full advantage of all of the assets that were made for this series, using the models of the characters in their explanations of anatomy and how the animals have changed from their modern-day ancestors. That digital era green was so prominent in the early 2000s, wasn't it? It just makes you feel like you're learning something awesome. They also use a handful of practical effects in this show, which I really appreciate. It's seen less and less in all forms of media these days, but having handmade props for your science fiction film goes a long way. It can not only look better than CGI in some cases, but also demonstrates a commitment to the craft that goes beyond a digital rendering. This isn't to say that designing and rendering computer graphics isn't hard work. It certainly is, but taking that extra step to supplement your CGI with something physical that requires a team of humans to collaborate on is, in my opinion, an indication of true artistic integrity. In episode 6, we meet the Ocean Phantom, a colony of siphonophores that function as a single organism. To better convey the concept of a colonial organism, the animal is depicted as a raft-like assembly of gelatinous bubbles. Each cell represents an individual, and each individual serves a different role in the colony. An interesting depiction of an evolutionary adaptation that the presenters will remind you exists today in the modern world. Towards the end of the episode, the Ocean Phantom is caught in a catastrophic tropical storm. Tragically, the colony is ripped apart, with chunks of the animal scattered here and there across the waves. For these shots, the directors used some cleverly crafted props in the place of CGI. A genius move, as rendering translucent blobs floating in rough waters would be a massive undertaking for the animation team. It also goes without saying that the practical effects look far more realistic than the CGI renders. I can't explain why, but as a kid, these little chunks of the Ocean Phantom always looked appetizing to me. I don't know, they just look like they'd be delicious, salty, chewy Hawaiian rolls. Is that just me? This episode ends with an uplifting reminder that natural disasters are a part of nature, that sometimes destruction is necessary for some organisms, like the Ocean Phantom, to reproduce. We also get a parting remark from Professor Palumbi about his newest Pokemon design and some of its attacks.
Likewise, our spindle troopers are sea spiders. They have poisonous chelicera, claws at the front that they can use to slash at the sea slugs.
You know what? Let's talk about these presenters for a second. These guys weren't involved in the actual creation of the show, instead providing the directors with authoritative figures that could deliver the educational material of the series. Now, I don't like to throw around the term giant fucking nerds, unless I'm talking to my closest friends. But I think that if you looked up the word Poindexter in the Oxford Dictionary, this guy's picture would come up. These aren't just nerds, they're nerds in their element, and there's really nothing better than hearing some socially awkward college professor blather on about his hyperfixations.
Hi, I'm Bruce Tiffany. I'm a faculty member in the biology program in CCS and also a faculty in the Department of Earth Science, where I'm a paleontologist.
Professor Bruce Tiffany was not only a professor at the University of California, but from 2005 to 2016 served as the Dean of the College of Creative Studies. That's right, in addition to having a doctorate in paleobiology, Bruce here also taught a flower and landscape painting course. You'd be surprised how often science and art go hand in hand like that. And just in case you didn't think he was a big enough nerd, he also sported an iconic wizard hat during lectures and commencement speeches. He's retired now, but it must have been amazing having classes with this guy as your professor. He is easily the most charismatic presenter in the series.
And so it's not surprising here in the future that some other organism has stepped into this slot, and the organism that has stepped into this slot is a red alga.
Mike Lindley will, to me, unfortunately, forever be the guy who talks about turtle sex for a bit longer than I was comfortable with.
Of course, there is one major problem about being so huge, and that's when it comes to mating. Now, modern-day tortoises mate on top of each other, but of course, the Toroton is far too big for that. They've solved this problem by mating back to back.
So size really does matter.
He's not only a herpetologist, that is, an expert in all things reptilian, but also operates his own film production studio called Hairy Frog Productions. He's got quite a lengthy video on filming wildlife on YouTube. I'll link it in the description for anyone who gets the urge to go out and film some tortoises after watching this video.
In the wild, all animals have a space around them that's known as the circle of fear. And if you enter that circle, they'll be inclined to either flee or fight.
And finally, the late Professor Richard Fortey, who unfortunately passed away only a few months ago in March of 2025. This guy is the quintessential British scientist. It makes sense that the producers of The Future is Wild would want a well-spoken, presentable gentleman to guide their viewers through the series, and no one fits that bill better than Professor Fortey.
The caves are lit with the bioluminescence, the natural light that these bacteria produce. Bacteria, in fact, are capable of living everywhere, no matter how inhospitable the environment. Go to a boiling hot spring, some bacteria love it. Bacteria are ancient organisms. They've been around on the Earth for at least 3,000 million years, during which time they've colonized every conceivable habitat.
He was a paleontologist, natural historian, and a writer, and after a life-changing trip to the London Museum of Natural History when he was in grammar school, he decided that he would like nothing more than to work as a researcher there for the entirety of his adult life. And so he did. It's truly admirable when you see someone who pursues their childhood dreams to such ends, especially when those dreams involve educating the world about the natural beauties of our planet. The presenters of this show and their rich backgrounds in the fields of science and art perfectly exemplify the amount of integrity that went into creating The Future is Wild. This was not just some loud, attention-grabbing TV special designed to sell ad time. This was a successful attempt at capitalizing on the general public's fascination with the natural sciences, not just for monetary gain, but with the intention of educating an entire generation through entertainment. It's a rare and precious thing to find media that is not only engaging and exciting to watch, but informative and made with passion. Jo Adams may not have her name in lights underneath the 7th Avatar movie, but her contributions to the world of science and science fiction are arguably more valuable than any James Cameron movie. As an artist, I often ask myself, what do I want to tell the world with my work? Do I want to entertain, educate, or enact change? It's because of series like The Future is Wild that I can tell myself it's possible to do all three. Every time I sat down and popped in a DVD to watch the same 3 episodes again and again, I was invigorated by the thought that one day I could create something like this too. A beautiful marriage between art and science, entertainment and education. It's not award-winning, it's not even all that popular, but The Future is Wild has been, and remains to this day, an incredibly influential series that has inspired a new generation of scientists and artists. Oh, you thought I was going to end this video without talking about the Future is Wild animated spin-off series? Don't worry, I didn't forget. However, I also never watched this as a kid. I didn't even know it existed until I mentioned the docuseries to one of my college friends, and they were called cartoon tweens traveling to the future and having adventures with their squibbin sidekick.
10,000 years in the future, a mega ice age is threatening humanity. My mission? Pilot the time flyer into the far-off future and find a new home.
Now, I would love to sit down and watch this masterpiece in its entirety for the very first time, but I think it might deserve its own video. If you enjoyed this little retrospective that I've made, let me know down in the comments, and let me know if you'd also like to hear my thoughts on the animated series. Oh, there's also a manga series that I just found out about while I was making this video. This could work its way into its own video too. For now though, thank you all so much for watching. This video has been a bit of a departure from the typical content that I make on this channel. I usually make videos about my art and original stories, but if you enjoy this kind of video essay style, please let me know so that I can make more of them. If you liked the illustration of the rattleback that I did for this video and feel inspired to make some art of your own, check out our digital brush packs available for purchase on our Gumroad. I used our new Field Journal brush pack that my wife Claire made in preparation for Upoctober 2025. A purchase would help support 2 independent artists and help you make artwork like mine. A big thank you to all of our patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to help support the channel, consider becoming a channel member or supporting us on Patreon. We have some cool reward tiers on Patreon, including stickers, prints, and exclusive videos. Any amount helps, and we really appreciate it. I hope you're having a really great day, and if not, I hope this video made it a little bit better. Stay curious, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.